So, yesterday, July 26th, the GBI quietly announced that their investigation into Tamla Horsford's death concluded and there will be no criminal charges against anyone. So, I'm not necessarily shocked by this. I knew that this would happen given things that I found out during their investigation, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later. So, since the GBI released their bullshit findings from their investigation, I thought that I would tell you my theories from my investigation that I did. And I want to preface this by saying that I am not in any way um, saying that what I'm going to say is 100% facts. This is nothing but, I guess, at this point, entertainment. No one should take what I'm saying seriously. I have no criminal investigative background. I'm just your run of the muck Reddit sleuth who has obtained all of their investigative training from years of watching Scooby Doo. And again, this is all my opinion, and I don't want to be sued by anyone, but I'm going to continue on with my opinion. So, I want to start with saying this before I even get started. What I'm about to say is not an attack on persons with mental health issues or anything like that, but the most disturbing thing about the interviews with the persons of interest is Bridget Fuller. Like, she is a complete clusterfuck. Like, I am very disturbed after listening to and reading her interviews. I would not be comfortable with being in the same room with her. And I'm going to tell you why. It is my belief that Bridget is a narcissist, that she has an antisocial personality disorder, and that she is has all these paranoid delusions. And again, this is not an attack on persons with mental health issues or anything like that. This is just based off of listening to her interviews. And the link to her interviews are in the description so you can listen and hear for yourself what I'm about to tell you, because my God, none of this makes any sense. So, from the very beginning of Bridget's first initial interview, the investigator asked her, to kind of go through what happened, that day and leading up to the party. So for 45 seconds or so, she's on topic talking about, her running late, calling, seeing if she can bring in anything. And then she diverts to saying that, her priority is always the children first, and something about a child becoming missing. Like, what in the entire fuck are you talking about? There were no children at this party and nothing to do with children or anything. I'm was just really, really confused. I remember when I initially read this, I had to go back and reread again to see if I maybe skipped over a paragraph, or maybe I was missing a page from the transcript or whatever, because none of that made sense. So and then she kind of goes on to continue with her off-topic rants about the previous weekend that they were doing pumpkin carving, and all the kids thought she was the cat's meow because she had a sawzall and she was carving pumpkins. And then she leads into her that she's the perfect friend because she never leaves someone's house without sweeping or cleaning up. And then she says that, she doesn't have a lot of friends. She has a small circle, that she has John and she has her boss, and she's very protective of John. She then says that she doesn't see her downfall, but Bridget, if you like, I can put together a PowerPoint and outline a lot of your downfalls for you. And then she goes on to say that she doesn't trust people. And then she goes on to say that she doesn't trust grown-ups, even though Bridget is in her mid-40s. She then says that, she tells him that, it was no offense to her, but she was going to be leaving because, not knowing what to expect and having to sleep with one eye open. And then she goes on to say that she has trust issues. And then she refers to herself as Mother Hen, as to say that she's a responsible person. And then she says that, how Tam was very affectionate towards her, saying that she was perfect, that she wanted to take her home, yada yada, blah blah blah. I don't believe any of that. And the reason why I don't believe that, and for me, hearing her say that was very disturbing, because it was as she was projecting how she feels about herself onto Tam, and having Tam say these things, and there was no way to verify if Tim said any of this. And for me, that was very disturbing, because I feel that if Tim was acting as if she was Bridget's cheerleader throughout the night, that someone would have brought up that, Tam was like very happy go lucky, and she was just, very impressed by Bridget, and she just kept bragging about Bridget, and she was very impressed by Bridget. Like, no one made a single mention of this. Like, and no one mentioned anything about Bridget being perfect aside from Bridget. Because I'm pretty sure that if Tam thought, for whatever reason, Bridget was perfect, that someone else would have thought that Bridget was perfect, and they would have brought up Bridget being perfect in her interview. So Bridget's entire interview consists of her not trusting people, her being perfect, her having trust issues, and Tam saying how much she loves her and how perfect she is, which I feel is a crock of shit. And it shows that Bridget is a narcissist. She has antisocial personality disorder, and that she has like paranoia delusions or whatever, right? So, and then listening to Bridget's second subsequent interview, it was literally the same theme again, but a little more intense and a little more pronounced. Because immediately when she answers her phone, when the investigator called her, she's like, and the investigator asks, like, Bridget, are you okay? And she's like, I don't trust people. Like, you clearly have a relationship with Andy Kaling, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be calling him, in the middle of the night when you're getting pulled over by City of Cumming police, asking him to come to your rescue. And like, I don't understand the life of me, the sort of relationship that a person being investigated for a serious crime, or who was party or a witness to a serious crime, has such a relationship with the people that are investigating her, that she's calling them, texting them, first when she's in a pickle, so to speak. Because originally she says that, her husband, Gary, is her lovey or her security blanket that she, goes to when she's having issues. So instead of calling her husband someone that she's been married to for over 20 years, someone that she's familiar with, someone who is not, that she's not referring to as a stranger constantly, she calls Andy Kaling and Michael Christian. Like, that to me makes absolutely no sense. So not only does she reiterate multiple times throughout the conversation that she doesn't trust people, she also says that, Michael Christian and Tyler Sexton made her take her Xanax before the interview, which again is like another, telltale sign of like what, we're dealing with when we're talking to Bridget. Another thing that really stands out to me is that, when they call, they're like literally saying that we only really want to ask you 2 questions, and it should only take a minute, and this entire conversation takes over 12 minutes. And when Tyler finally gets to the second question, he says, like, I know that you have, a necklace that you keep Xanax in. And she immediately says that I didn't give anyone anything. I need my drugs. For me, that sounds a little guilty. It sounds a little suspect, because I would think that his follow up with that was like, hey, Bridget, have you taken your atonement of Xanax for today? Because you seem a little on edge. I would need for you to take it down a couple. Maybe you should take a Xanax and call us back in like 15 minutes when it starts to kick in. Immediately, it's like, I didn't give anyone my drugs. I need my drugs. And then she goes on to say that, I didn't because he asked her, like, did you see her take anything, or uh, whatever. Like, she says, I didn't see her put anything in her drink. Okay, is that a fruit and slip or what? Because he clearly asked you, did you see her take anything? And her response to that was, I didn't see her put anything in her drink. Who the fuck put something in Tam's drink? That's what I want to know. Why wasn't there no follow-up to this? Because clearly a clear-cut question is, did you see her take anything? Should not be followed up with, I did not see her put anything in her drink. I don't know of anyone who does recreational drugs that Bill Cosby's themselves. Like, I've Googled, how do people take recreational pills? They do it by putting it in their mouth and drinking something to wash it down with. I did not see anyone putting drugs in their drinks and taking it like that. Like, absolutely did not see anything remotely alluding to that. So, hearing her say that was like a fucking, like, bingo, like a light bulb going off into my head that led me to my next conclusion. So, backtracking a little bit, the interview with Stacey Smith. One of the things that really stood out to me about Stacey Smith was that out of all the people interviewed about Tam, she was the only person who had anything remotely negative to say about Tam. She brought up an incident where Tam put her husband out on the side of the freeway when her and her husband got into an argument. She then went on to say that, one of John's friends asked, was there, were y'all doing coke or whatever? And I actually investigated and followed up with that. And it was John doing coke? Because apparently John likes nose candy or whatever. And apparently that, late night ice run was supposed to be a drug run, but they didn't get anything because I guess their connect was busy that night. But I digress. And then she goes on to say that, throughout the night that, she was a little aggravated with Tam because I guess Stacey wanted to feel accomplished, or she wanted to feel useful in some aspect, that she fixed Tam a drink. And Tam was making fun of her bartending skills because apparently Tam was drinking her tequila with water. And when Stacey made her drink, she made it with Sprite and tequila. And I'm guessing she did more Sprite than tequila because she said that she made it the way that she would have drunk it. I'm guessing Stacey was annoyed by this. And since she already was, hopped up on liquid courage, God knows what else, and we know a little bit of marijuana, I feel that Stacey came up with the bright idea that, hey, I'm going to make Tam a drink that she's going to feel. And she did so with making it with the water, the tequila, and a third ingredient. That third ingredient was one of Bridget's Xanaxes. Because again, there was Xanax in Tam's system. By all accounts of people very close to Tam said that her only thing that she did was she, enjoyed a good drink and she enjoyed smoking weed. She's an adult. She can do whatever she wants to do. Like, she didn't take pills. She didn't even take aspirin when she wasn't feeling well. So her taking pills of any sort was way out of her character. And considering how defensive Bridget reacted to the questioning about the Xanax around her neck and how she immediately jumped into defensive mode. And this is before Bridget even knew anything about there being any Xanax in her system or anything like that. In her little slip of saying that she didn't see her put anything in her drink. That, to me, is what I feel happened the night that Tamla Horsford died. And I feel that within 30 minutes of Tam drinking the drink that had the Xanax in it, that she knew something wasn't right, and the way that she was feeling was not the result of tequila and water. So I am not a psychic. I don't know what transpired after these events that I feel are very probable to possibly have happened. But I feel that um, anyone feeling that something's not right, they're going to be in either fight or flight mode. I feel that Tam's initial reaction was to get the hell out of there. And knowing what Tam had taken, I feel that Stacy and John were very adamant about her not leaving and her staying the night. I feel that a scuffle or argument of such ensued, and that's when people, the cowards, started hauling ass out of there because they wanted no parts of what was about to happen, because they felt that their punk ass lives were more important than Tamla's life, Tamla's livelihood, this mother, her children. Their lives were not as significant or important for them because they did not want to be on record uh, being at the scene of whatever just happened. This is when I think that Sarah, Nicole, and whoever else, the cowards, hauled ass out of there. That's why I feel that Nicole and Sarah were on the phone with each other as they were driving home, because again, all these heifers were drinking throughout the night, and to make sure that they got home safely, they talked to each other on the phone, sobering up as they were going home. I feel that all of those abrasions and cuts and stuff on Tam's arms, her legs, side of her head, I feel that those are defensive wounds that she obtained during a scuffle with, I don't know if it was Stacy, I don't know if it was Tom, I don't know if it was Jose, I don't know if it was all of them. I feel like her injuries are indicative of self-defense or defensive wounds that she got trying to get the hell out of there, because it became very apparent that something wasn't right and she wanted to leave, and that's the reason why no one allowed her to leave. Because it was told to me that after Tim had died, that one of the things that people do is like a food train where they, cook meals and drop meals off for, grieving families or whatever. And during this time, Tam's shoes randomly appeared in the family's garage the same very day that Tom and Stacy dropped off food for the food train, which I feel is very suspicious, but again, is along the line of my theory of what happened to Tamla Horsford that night. What's even more disturbing to me is that if you listen back to the 911 call, Jose, at the end of the call, says that he's going to go put his shoes on and he's going to go meet the officers around back. If Jose was already outside, if he was already checking or assessing Tim as he claims, then he was either already outside barefoot and it literally serves no purpose to go back and get shoes, or he never was outside to begin with. Because it is alleged that before anyone called 911, they called Andy Kalin first, and this phone call lasted for 10 minutes. And then when they got off the phone with Andy Kalin, they called 911, and the first arriving officer canceled fire and EMS that were en route. Now, this is highly unusual. Typically, it doesn't matter if the person appears to be deceased, fire and EMS still come out to the scene to assess and see if there's anything that they can do. A few weeks ago, maybe even a couple months ago, there was an incident at Lake Lanier where two people were on the boat and they died due to carbon monoxide poisoning. It was already apparent that the two people on the boat were already deceased, yet fire and EMS still came out to the scene. During the entire 2 hours or whatever that police were on scene, not a single officer has a single note of anyone checking for a pulse or anything on Tamla Horsford. Mind you, all police officers are trained in basic CPR and basic first aid. No one, not even the officer on scene who previously was a firefighter EMT in New York, provided any aid to Tamla Horsford. Not Jose, who is trained in basic CPR and first aid from his time being a probation officer, or even John, who has a special needs son who has a history of seizures. So it is safe to assume that John is also has basic CPR and first aid training. No one gave aid to Tamla Horsford, which is the hardest thing that I cannot get over, because what if Tamla Horsford was barely alive for hours, silently suffering, and people just walking around her, walking over her, whatever. For the life of me, I don't understand that. And then the piss poor investigation. Immediately when police arrived on scene, the scene was treated as an accident. It wasn't treated as a potential crime scene or anything like that. Typically, any investigation kind of starts with like the worst possible scenario, and then it rules out to maybe the lessers or whatever, right? Because you don't walk into a scene where someone's deceased and automatically think that, hey, this is an accident. You're not going to collect any evidence or anything like that. And then it later shows that, hey, this was not accidental, something more sinister happened, but you don't have any evidence to support or back that up because you treated this scene as it was an accident and you discarded all the evidence that was there. So not only did police miss multiple opportunities to collect evidence on the scene, they allowed the people that were present to collectively write statements with each other. They allowed suspects to interrupt other interviews that were being taken. Like, to me, like, that is completely unheard of. Like, that makes absolutely no sense. Like, from the very beginning, this investigation was not a priority. It just went through the motions to say, like, hey, we did it. So, like, they cover their asses in that aspect. None of the statements made were verified or follow up with. Like, they didn't check to see if the people who claimed that they left at 10:30 had any proof that they left at 10:30. Like, I'm pretty sure that at least 2 or 3 of these women have Ring cameras or security systems that would have captured their entering their residence at X time, or they would have been like, hey, like, yeah, I left at 10:30, I got home at this time, I have a Ring camera which would have captured me walking into my front door at this time. None of that sort of evidence is present in this situation. Investigators took everyone's word as fact and went on their day. Like, John had Arlo cameras in her backyard, and she claims that none of her Arlo cameras were working at the present time because all the batteries were dead. Like, I don't believe that for 1 second. Like, you're either telling me that you're either too lazy or too stupid to change the batteries in your security cameras, because the entire reason why you have them is for your safety. And you're saying that, like, hey, yeah, I'm just too fat and lazy, I just have these cameras up here for decoration. Like, I don't believe that at all. And the fact that it took like over 2 weeks for her to send investigators an email for several months ago saying like, hey, your batteries are dead. Like, while investigators were on scene that day, they should have gone with her to wherever her cameras are set up and had her download those files. And they did not. So, no, I do not think Tamla Horsford's death was caused by a simple fall off of a deck. Because again, she had injuries to the side of her temple. She had injuries to her face. She had injuries to her hands. She had injuries to her shins, her fingers. Like, those injuries falling into a grassy area, they don't match up. None of this adds up. And then lastly, like, the whole part of, Stacy saying that, Tam was jealous that her and Tom, who are married, will be sleeping together, and Tam will be off by herself, sleeping alone, that she wanted her phone to stay downstairs with Stacy, so even though she was sleeping together, her phone would not be sleeping alone. This is complete bullshit, because any mother who has children, especially young children, Tamla's youngest son at the time was 4 years old. You're not going to tell me that a mother who is spending maybe like her first night away from her children and God knows how long is going to cut off all communication between herself and her children for several hours just because someone's fucking cell phone won't be sleeping alone. Like, you can't tell me that makes an ounce of sense whatsoever. It doesn't. Now, even though that the GBI has closed their investigation into Tamla Horsford's death, one of two things needs to happen. A, one of these heifers have a change of heart. Their conscience, if they have one of those in their deep, dark, black little hearts, comes out and says, hey, I wasn't necessarily honest before, but I want to clear my conscience and I want to tell the truth of what really happened that day. Or the FBI needs to step up and they need to investigate the top of the shithole going all the way down. And the top of the shithole starts with Sheriff Ron Freeman, who has a history of covering up shit. District Attorney Penny Penn, who is probably the most corrupt, ruthless, heartless bitch in elected office in the state of Georgia. That is going to be a totally different video. Like, I have a video up on prosecutor Heather Dunn, who had a man falsely arrested because she was trying to secure a conviction. And this is the kind of thing that Penny Penn thrives on. She's like the only person that I think has the most convictions or people that she's actually defended going off to prison when she was a public defender. Like, I don't understand anything about that, and the fact that she was elected for like the juvenile justice thing. I think that's fucking bullshit, and like that's something that I'm going to be working on very hard, because I don't feel that Penny Penn needs to be on any panel or anything dealing with children. I don't think she needs to be a prosecutor. I think that Penny Penn and Ron Freeman need to be heavily investigated. Andy Kalin needs to be investigated, because Andy Kalin should not even be a police officer. He has 2 years of policing experience, and this is 2 recent years. Like, he literally started being a police officer when Ron Freeman was elected into office. Like, I literally can go on and on about how corrupt and fucked up Forsyth County is because of Sheriff Ron Freeman and District Attorney Penny Penn, Judge Dickinson, Judge Bagley, and Judge Smith. Like, the FBI, the Department of Justice, needs to investigate those people in Forsyth County. Until that happens, Tamla Horsford will never get justice. Like, I need people to, I don't know, like, write, email, whatever, whoever, bring attention to this case, because all this shit was made possible. This miscarriage of justice was made possible because of Ron Freeman and Penny Penn. Like, investigate those two crooks, and everything else will make sense. So, this video is running a lot longer than I thought it would be, but this is my personal theory of what happened to Tamla Horsford. This is only for entertainment purposes. Again, I'm just your run of the muck Reddit sleuth. And yeah, I got my investigative certificate from Cartoon Network for watching Scooby Doo. So yeah, this opinion is all my own. And in order to get justice for Tamla Horsford, we need to investigate the corruption and then investigate the crime. Until next time.